Welcome back to the All-American Soccer Show. Today is July 14th. I'm one of your hosts, Carson Sauceda. Alongside me is Brian Fireball and Brett Esch. As you can see, we are now on YouTube. If you still want to listen to this on podcast, we are available on Apple Podcasts, and I'll put that in the description below. But with that being said, Brett, how about you go ahead and tell everyone what is on the agenda today?
All right, well, first off, fellas, as always, we got MLS games of the week as we start to get ready for that Leagues Cup break, and then 10 games after that for everybody after the Leagues Cup break. So playoff picture really coming into shape here. We'll start with you, Carson. As I understand that you're actually attending a game this week, so what's your game of the week?
Yes, sir. So the very first episode we did, Austin FC was playing Brian's team, Sporting KC. At Sporting, I predicted the Sporting win. I had to go against my own club, but I did get the point that week. Now, Austin FC is going to be the home team, and I'm actually going to be attending my yearly or annual Austin FC game. And every time I've been to Q2 Stadium, my team has won. So I have pretty high hopes, but the all-time head-to-head record, Austin currently leads this with 3-1-2. They always make for exciting games. The average total goals per game when these two teams play is 3.83 with the decimals repeating. So should be high scoring. Earlier, Sporting, like I said, they beat us 4-1. So that definitely added to the talent. Austin FC is currently 6th in the West. Sporting is 11th in the West, but they've played a few extra games. Obviously, Austin's going to be the home team. We're 5-3-3 at home. Sporting KC is only 1-6-5 away, so they clearly have not, been a great team on the road this season. Based on the form guide, Austin FC is 3-1-2 in their last 6. Sporting is 1-3-2. Overall, in the last 6 games, Austin is actually second in the whole MLS in just scoring goals, which I actually did not realize that we were doing that well. But on the other side of things, Sporting have Polito, who has 9 goals and 1 assist since the start of June. So that guy is also a scoring machine as well. Like I said, I'm expecting probably a lot of goals this game, hopefully, especially since I'll be in attendance. I hope it's not 0-0. But anyway, Austin FC is also going to be missing a few of our key guys. Ring, one of our designated players, is still out. He's been playing central defense this season. Vasanen, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. I guess I'm a bad fan of Austin FC. He's another defender who's going to be out, and then Cole Manick is also another defender who's going to be out. So we're missing 3 of our kind of regular starters to squad players, as well as Dreusi. He was pulled out early in our last game. It looked kind of minor. I haven't seen anything saying that he's going to be out, but he could be limited for this game. So that's probably our best player for Austin FC might also be limited in this game. SKC, their really only big injury is Graham Zusi. So although Austin FC kind of looks better on paper for the home record and everything, we definitely are going to be without a lot of guys, especially in defense. So Sporting might be able to take advantage of that. And like I said earlier in the season, they definitely got the best of that. With that being said, I'm going to actually have to take Austin FC. There's just no way. It might be a little bit of bias, but I just can't be watching a game live and still, be supporting the away team somehow. So I'm going to take Austin FC. It's my game of the week. I had to pick it. I'm going there, but yeah, I'm gonna back Austin FC.
Carson, I'm really going to have to agree with you here. I as well think Austin's going to win. They've been in better form as of late, and in all reality, your guys' defense is a lot more reliable than Sporting's is. As you said, we do have Polito, who's in great form up top, but even with your missing pieces, I'm going to have to give it to you. Q2 Stadium is a very formidable place to go play, and although we did get a very commanding 4-1 win at Children's Mercy Park last month, I think that as of right now, you guys are the better team. You're in much better form, so I'm going to have to give the nod to Austin here. I hope, for your sake, Sauce, it's a great game, no matter who wins. So, but yeah, I'm going to have to go with Austin here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree. I think it's I picked right away when you told us before that we started recording that this was going to be our game of the week. I just think Q2 Stadium. I mean, like to Brian's point, it's just such a tough place to play. I mean, I've been seeing a lot of power rankings, people posting on Twitter of ranking the toughest environments in MLS, and Austin FC consistently, rightfully so, at the top of everybody. Everybody unanimously agrees that Q2 Stadium is one of the toughest environments. Again, Sporting KC it's been so much fun to watch them, right? Especially over this last month. But I just do think that Austin FC playing at home is really a buzzsaw for any team. And I do think it's funny, Carson, that you said about, you got to go to the game with the clear head, without having to think like, oh, I picked Sporting. So having that, kind of non-mutual interest. Because I remember last week I said, I'm done picking against Sounders, but I've got to get the point now. I think I'm last in the table. So I've got to pick with my conscience. So I'm taking Austin FC here, and so I think that goes to Brian now. What is your game of the week? What are you looking forward to on Saturday?
So I've got Cincinnati at home to Nashville. This is a really interesting game because you're looking at a Cincinnati team who has only won 2 of their last 6. They've drawn the other 3 and lost 1. Well, Nashville's only won 2 and lost 4 in their last 6. So you're looking at both teams who have been towards the top of our power rankings, but both have been on the slide as of late. They're missing a couple players each due to international duty. But Cincinnati in this game does get the nod for me still. They're playing at home. And Nashville's missing 2 of their more key players, with Shaq Moore and Daniel Lovitz being out due to the red card suspension because of that insane fight at the end of the last game. And like I said, the TQL Stadium, great place to go play, very great environment. I'll be giving the nod to Cincinnati for this game, especially if Brandon Vazquez and Matt Miazga can come back and play with a vengeance, because they've got a chip on their shoulder now.
Yeah, I think that Austin FC pick might have been the first time ever where we've all picked the same team to win a game, and I hope it doesn't happen again here, because I'm going with FC Cincinnati as well. Hopefully Miazga and Vazquez will be returning to make that a little bit of an easier pick. They definitely are going kind of on the downhill, like you said, the downhill slopes, but so is Nashville. So I don't know. I think FC Cincinnati is going to be able to pull this one out.
Well, I'm sorry, Carson. I'm going with FC Cincinnati as well. I mean, again, I've got to get points, but at the same time, I can't knowingly pick a team that I think is playing a lot worse right now, and that's Nashville. I mean, you talk about a team that has really hit a rough skid here. I mean, as far as their last 5, they've lost 4, like Brian said, and I just think that on the road at Cincinnati, I don't think that this is where Nashville gets back. I do think Nashville will eventually get back on track, whether that's through a strong Leagues Cup performance or maybe right after the Leagues Cup break, but I don't see it happening this weekend against Cincinnati. I don't think that this is where they get back on track. So that's 2 unanimous games now. So let's try and get some variation for my game of the week.
This might be the most boring games of the week.
And so I have Atlanta United hosting Orlando City. Orlando City's on the road, so I already know Carson's over there, pumping his fist off camera because he loves Orlando City on the road. But this is the 9th place team and the 10th place team in the Western Conference table, so literally right at the playoff line, a huge matchup before the Leagues Cup break. Looking at the head-to-head, Atlanta United's 1-9, Orlando City's won only 3, with 7 draws between these two. They drew 1-1 on May 27th, so this is a huge game for both of them as far as the table, as far as the head-to-head series. I think from a competitive standpoint, this will be one of the best. I'm going to take home sides across the slate. I'm taking Atlanta United. I think they take care of business here. I'm 2-0 picking against Orlando City when they're on the road. So I'm going to go with the odds here. I'm going to take Atlanta United.
Yeah, I've gotten bashed for having Orlando on my slate. Brett called me out last time whenever I presented an Orlando matchup and then got it wrong after I'd already done that previously in the past of our games of the week. So I really hope we have some difference in picks, or this is just really a pointless games of the week. But I'm going to have to go with Atlanta as well, just because my track record is so bad with Orlando. And if I pick Orlando 3 times and get none of them right, that'll be more embarrassing than just getting it wrong and picking Orlando. So I'm gonna have to take Atlanta here and force Brian to pick Orlando.
Please, Brian, give the listeners something to care about here.
Y'all know what Eminem said? This looks like a job for me. Because I'm picking Orlando, actually, ironically.
Man of the people right here.
Atlanta does come in on better form, which is a really, in hindsight, this is a stupid pick on my end, but I'm notorious for that. But Atlanta right now are 6th in home points, picking up 24 from 11, while Orlando are the 5th best away team, picking up 15 from 10. But I'm going to go with a sneaky Orlando road win here. I was really tempted to go with a communist draw, but I will refrain, and I will go with an Orlando win for this one. So I'm doing the Slim Shady bit, and I'm saying this is a job for me to be different.
Dude, if Orlando City loses because of Brian picking that, their fans will have a bounty on our heads. Dude, like, this is crazy. Like, they had the best road record at one point. Carson picks them twice on the road. Brian picks them, and now, like, they're staring down 0-3. So that's really funny. It's a funny trend to watch. So now we move. That's all that we have for MLS talk today for this episode, I believe. So that'll take us to Gold Cup. The United States national team was knocked out by Panama in penalty kicks in the semifinal. So let's just go through, Brian and Carson, let's go through your takeaways about what are the main things that you learned about this obviously suboptimal USMNT roster, which I'm sure we'll talk about here pretty soon. We'll start with you, Brian. Just talk about what are some things that you took away from watching BJ Callahan in his last, what's probably going to be his last tournament coaching this team before Greg Berhalter returns, which I'm sure that you've got plenty to say about that. So just talk about this tournament, what you saw from the U.S.
So I really wasn't too disappointed with how our team played, because you're thinking we took a B or C team there, so you're taking a lot of young guys, a lot of guys who have never been exposed to the national stage, and the first game you're throwing them in the deep end against a Jamaica team who brought guys like Leon Bailey, Mikel Antonio, like you're talking Premier League level players, and you're throwing them in the deep end. So I think in all reality, a semifinal appearance isn't terrible, especially for the team we had. I think mistakes are going to end up being the story of the knockout stages, though. In the game against Canada, we were so sloppy. Both teams are sloppy, to be fair. I'm not going to get away from that, but we were so sloppy. And then get to Panama, and obviously the Turner mistake for Panama, that was this first really big mistake all tournament. You can't get on him for that. I'm not going to get on him for that. I'm a goalkeeper. We make mistakes. But I think small mental mistakes throughout the tournament are what led to our demise. I think the Canada game also didn't do us any favors either, because we had spent so much energy and passion getting through Canada that honestly, by the time we got to extra time against Panama, we just looked cooked. And Panama outplayed us. I'm going to be honest. They played great. They have a great team. I'm really excited for the final, Panama against Mexico. I think that'll be a great game. But I think overall, there's some players that definitely rose. Like you said, I think overall, for the roster we had, there were some guys that really made their name, and there were some other guys that really didn't. But I can't be upset with the semifinal against nation's other first teams. So that's all I really got.
Yeah, I think the big issue is just kind of with the roster that we took. It was definitely we wanted to go in and win it, because we didn't really learn much from this roster. I mean, we brought a lot of guys who are not going to be, future prospects. We didn't really bring a whole lot of those younger guys or guys, that really have a chance with the USMNT team. I think it was Hercules Gomez who, talked about, if we're going to, kind of bring a less roster for the Gold Cup, then let's take guys who, can maybe be able to compete at the Olympics, or guys who, are going to have a better future with this club. I actually wrote down a few guys who are going to be eligible to play in the Olympics that we didn't take. So I have Obed Vargas, Malik Tillman, Taylor Booth, Kevin Paredes, Daryl DK, Paxton Harrison, Caleb Wiley, and Jack McGlynn. And obviously, some of those guys are going to kind of be in transitions with their clubs, or, they need a rest as well. But none of those guys were on the A team. So I don't know if they really needed a huge vacation. I'm sure there were guys in that roster who maybe, wouldn't have been available, but we called in guys like Gressel, who's already 29. I can't remember the last time I've even seen him with the USMNT. He's a right back. We basically played him as right wing sometimes because Zendejas was just playing so poor. Christian Roldan, he's 28. Obviously enough said about him. He's not a guy who really has a bright future with the national team. Jackson Ewell, we brought as a replacement. He's 26. He's never played good with the national team really ever. It did make sense to bring him, and not only just to bring him as a replacement, but we never used him. So if you're going to bring in a guy and not even use him, you might as well, have a younger guy who can at least gain experience off of that. Aaron Long, who's 30 years old, mind you. So, I think people already, he's not national team level quality either. And then Jordan Morris, who's 28, which he's a guy I've kind of said who maybe can kind of be in that A team, especially if Pulisic, suffers an injury or something like that. He's a guy I could see Berhalter bringing along. Not that I agree with that, but he's maybe one that could go 50-50. But just based off of all those other guys, give them a chance to play with each other for the Olympic-wise, or just because they actually might have a future with this national team, I think it would make a lot more sense than some of the guys that we called up, and then we didn't learn a whole lot from.
Yeah, I think that, you make a great point about you've got to use these tournaments where, obviously Gold Cup is not the Nations League. You could tell by the guys that they called up. So you're right. That was the whole point of my thing that I told y'all in our group chat, is bring up guys to get a good look at them against CONCACAF opponents, right? You talk about Obed Vargas, you talk about all those youngsters. Look, I'm a Sounders fan through and through, right? Y'all know that, but Jordan Morris, Christian Roldan, Jordan Morris is 28, like you said, Roldan's 29. Aaron Long's 30. How are these guys getting better? You've already seen what they can produce for you. So don't take Christian Roldan to the tournament and play him for 15 minutes against Panama when he could just be playing regularly for his club. That's how, if you want to see these guys develop, however much they can develop at 29, 28, and 30 years old, just let them keep playing with their club. Bring in Obed Vargas, bring in the 17-year-old midfielder, have him play against St. Kitts and Nevis, Trinidad and Tobago, and just give him some exposure with playing with the U.S. crest on. I totally agree, man. And it's just so mind-boggling to me that obviously BJ Callahan did a great job, but there's only so much that he can do as an interim manager, and I totally get it. But it's just it honestly felt like such a Greg Berhalter roster to call up, right? This is exactly what he would have done, and it's just frustrating because it's like, give these guys a look. How does Gaga Slanina not play a single minute? I love Matt Turner. I love Matt Turner, but I'm just saying, you've got this kid who just transferred to Chelsea from MLS. Give him a chance. That you're not going all out, everything balls to the wall for this tournament. Give him some looks, right? So I completely agree with that. I guess that would be my one major takeaway is just, I feel like this isn't the roster that we should have been dealt with in the Gold Cup. So next on our list, we have Jones versus, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, Tolkien battle. So this is something that I know you two really wanted to bring up. So we'll start with you, Carson, about this. Just give us a rundown of this.
Yeah, so this is another one was kind of questionable for me. Tolkien is, 22. He's going to be in the MLS All-Star game, and I think he's just already a better player than DeJuan Jones, who actually had a great tournament. He surprised me. But that left back spot has really been the most open spot for the USMNT for as long, as I can remember, just behind Anthony Robinson. Who are you going to play? Because, at the World Cup, instead of even taking a back at left back, we just took 3 right backs instead and still played Shaq Moore as a right back instead of putting anyone else, as a left back. So DeJuan Jones, to me, he's already 26. Like I said, Tolkien's 22. I have some other names of some guys. Sam Vines is 24. He's been great for the national team every time he's came. Caleb Wiley, he's 18. Also repped us at the U20 World Cup. He's a guy who has a lot of potential. And then just another guy I kind of wanted to shout out was George Bello, who just got that move over to LASK over in the Austrian league. He's had a fantastic story. He won the MLS with Atlanta United, went over to Arminia Bielefeld, so it's just something I want to talk about. Went over to the Bundesliga, got relegated in his first season of Bundesliga, goes down to the second Bundesliga, got relegated back-to-back. So now instead of playing in the third tier of Germany, he just got to move over to where he'll be playing European football or European soccer next year, which, that's just kind of cool to me. He's also only 21. So, there's guys like that, who are younger than DeJuan Jones, I think have a lot more potential. I guess what I'm trying to say is I would have liked to seen a lot more of Tolkien or someone else who actually I think would have a better chance of being that backup in 2026, just because I'd rather not have three right backs and then only Anthony Robinson as the other fullback.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head, Carson, so I'm not going to take too much time on this one. Tolkien's got a lot of growing up to do, though, which is my big thing. Granted, he's 19, you said?
He's 22.
He's 22. Okay, so he's still relatively young. He's my age. I'll say that. He's my age. So you're talking a guy who hasn't been playing first-team footy more than 3-4 years, but you're looking at a team where, kind of like you said, we have a huge opening behind Anthony Robinson for that left-back spot. Realistically, if we lose Anthony Robinson, it's either Serginho Dest or Joe Scally who gets to play there. So, at this point, we have a giant gap, and I think probably the best contender for that should be Sam Vines. I'm surprised Sam Vines wasn't here. I know he just finished up his season with, I think it's Royal Antwerp in Belgium.
Yep.
Apologies if the club's wrong, but I would have loved to see him come play, get some time with the national team, kind of showcase his ability, but I also understand why we didn't bring too many European players because they just had a really long season. They need that rest. But I agree. I would love to have seen some guys get some other time at left back. So, again, you kind of took all my points, so I don't need to say much about this one.
All right, so that brings us to Matt Miazga. I know that this is a guy that Brian has mentioned a lot before we hit the record button tonight. So let's talk about him, and is that a guy that Greg Berhalter, that will be seeing a return of Matt Miazga once Berhalter takes back the reins of the national team? We'll start with you, Brian.
I'd say, in short, probably no. Miazga really came out hard on Greg, and really he rightfully so could. He was very much disrespected. Respectfully to Aaron Long, I have a small agenda against Aaron Long. He should be getting called up over Aaron Long. But at the same time, this was his chance to completely show that he is better than Aaron Long. And he didn't make himself stand out that much. Yes, he had times where he settled our back line, because him and Jalen Neal as a back line I think was great. You had that mix of European experience, and then Jalen Neal, who I'm going to talk about here soon, because I loved the dude playing. I think he was incredible. Miazga didn't completely bathe himself in glory at the tournament, and this was his chance to really look at Greg and say, hey, keep me in your conversation. But, he didn't give himself that. You're looking at a center back core of Tim Marine, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Mark McKenzie, Miles Robinson, the list goes on. We got 5 or 6 good center backs we can play. Miazga's time with the national team is running out really quick, and this was his chance to kind of put his foot back in the door. And I wouldn't say he got his whole foot in the door, but he got his pinky toe. He is struggling right now. And so, in short, I don't think Greg will bring him back ever unless it's for another Gold Cup.
Yeah, so I just thought this was an interesting point because obviously he's kind of, bashed Berhalter whenever he, his contract expired. He kind of bashed Berhalter and Aaron Long at the same time without mentioning his name, just saying he's better than, some of those guys who have been getting called up over him. And it seemed like almost a reason why he came back to the MLS, so he could fill some of that MLS quota that GGG, Berhalter, the USSF have held. I think he had a relatively solid tournament. It's definitely interesting to see him playing side by side with Aaron Long sometimes, especially since he basically bashed Aaron Long previously. But yeah, it's now. I mean, Miazga is definitely better than Aaron Long, and I think you got to see that in the tournament. So to me, there's just no reason to, I guess, bring Aaron Long anymore. But I just know Berhalter is probably going to have problems with Miazga. But yeah, that's really all to be said. We'll see. He definitely deserves it over Aaron Long, but him and Berhalter gotta squash some of that beef they have.
I'll be more than happy never seeing Aaron Long represent my country again. I mean, I think we can all agree with that.
So I think now we can kind of take this, and Carson, I'll propose the question to you now. Brett, you can chime in on this as well. Like, how do we create the future Gold Cup rosters? Because obviously we've talked about it, like guys who are going to the Olympics, youngsters, like build the future with some experience from now. Like, how do we begin to start shaping future rosters for the Gold Cup? Like, Brett, do you have any topics on this, or do you want me to kick it to Carson?
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, I think it should always be overwhelmingly young. I think if you're going to approach the tournament as they do, like, I would almost make it like whatever the lowest youth national team is, it should just be like a step above that. You know what I mean? Like bring in the youngsters like Obed Vargas, like Carson talked about, like all those guys that really can have a chance to play on that first team level in a tournament where a lot of these other, like you talked about, Jamaica brought all these European caliber, players and exposed them to that on an international stage. So for me, like I talked about earlier, I've kind of hit on the same point, but I think it's really important that moving forward, I would like to see Gold Cup rosters just move in a younger direction in general.
Yeah, no, I think we definitely got to go with the Leonardo DiCaprio approach, and just like you said, just do overwhelmingly young roster in the future. I think
Hey, I got to give props for that one. That's creative. You could tell he was loading up into it too. He was ready. He was just waiting for me to stop talking. That's great stuff right there.
Nah, but I mean, like I said before, I mean, this one's a little bit different because there's an Olympics coming straight afterwards. But let some of those guys mesh. Who have a chance to go to the Olympics together, or just young guys who either are prospects for the A team or guys who they can be older and maybe MLS guys. I'm sorry, but they need to be guys who are backups or potential backups for that A team roster.
Absolutely.
Yes. I'm not going to be able to make that good of a joke. That was.
You can't lead off with a joke that good and just expect me to take anything serious after that.
I'm sorry. I already said it earlier. Just overwhelming.
Mine's a little. That's crazy. Calm down. So I think in my ideal mind, it'd be a mix of guys who were like the reserve first team players. So the guys that consistently get called up to the first team, those like young guys who play in Europe, like the Taylor Booth, kind of those kind of guys, the young guys, plus some experience. Like having Matt Miazga there, I think is okay. Cause again, I'll bring up Jalen Neal. Matt Miazga is not an awful person to learn off of if you're Jalen Neal. Like he's played in Europe, he's played in La Liga. Like he has a lot of experience in the game. So he's not an awful person to learn from. Do I regret our roster we had for the 2023 edition of the Gold Cup? Not necessarily. Do I think it needs a change for the future? 1,000%. That's why we're talking about it. The Gold Cup's a great way to develop talent to the senior national level. Like, you're talking guys that we just had the U20 World Cup. I would have loved to seen some of those guys come up, like Diego Luna. Would have loved to see him get a go against some of those guys.
100%.
I think Diego Luna in a U.S. shirt is incredible, and he's finally starting to pick up some form in a Salt Lake shirt. But you're talking other nations basically bringing their first teams to the tournament. It shouldn't hurt our egos to bring young guys if we lose, as long as they're getting development, because that's just going to make us stronger down the line when teams are playing, Mexico's playing Panama, and we're bringing in guys that are going to be future for us. So that's kind of my opinion on it. I'm sitting here kind of trying to think of a witty joke, but I can't do that, so I'll just go ahead and rest my case.
So let's talk a little bit more in depth about this Gold Cup roster, this 2023 edition of the Gold Cup. Let's talk about stock up and down. Who are some guys that you thought you saw really had a spark and started trending up, in your opinion? Some guys that maybe are trending down or even further down than they were already trending. We'll start with you, Carson. Who are some guys that, or you guys can kind of just bounce off each other, just some ups and downs from this tournament in general?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and grab an up. Kind of, we already talked about it a little bit, but just DeJuan Jones. He did have a really good tournament, so he definitely rose in a lot of people's minds. I think currently they might have him as the back at left back. Like I said, in terms of 2026, that's a little bit further ahead. I just think there's so many other left backs who are younger than him with a lot more potential. I would have loved to see Tolkien get more playing time, like I mentioned before, but DeJuan Jones definitely helped himself. Raising some of the stock, and then I'll just bounce off and let Brian do one.
So one of my trending up is actually James Sands, which is when you had Mark Sauce. Mm-hmm. I think he looks really good in his time at the Gold Cup. I think his time with Rangers really helped him get a sense of ball security and awareness that he needed that he wouldn't have gotten in MLS. Overall, I would love to see him try to get another move back to Europe, but I don't think it will happen because he performs so poorly with Rangers unless he performs really well the rest of this MLS season. So, but I think James Sands, if he moves over to a team in Austria or something like that, because obviously you're seeing George Bellow go over there. You saw Brendan Aronson was a big success over there. So if he can get a move over to a country like Austria, I think he could really fill in and be that kind of reserve six that we need on the national team, because not having one when Tyler Adams is down right now is killer. And I think James Sands, if he can continue to develop his game, could be that next 8.
Sorry, I just wanted to touch on real quick. Carson, you talked about DeJuan Jones. That this was the guy that I wanted to bring up and kind of touch on, because I wasn't really familiar with his game coming into this tournament. But from an athletic standpoint, he stood out. I mean, every time he was on the field, I mean, this is a guy that was all over, making plays, setting up teammates, and so it was really fun to watch him. And then Brian, you talked about James Sands, who NYCFC man, just came over from Rangers. I read a really interesting story on the MLS website about kind of his time with Rangers, the way he developed there. Obviously didn't go as planned, made the move back to NYCFC. I do agree, I don't think a move to Europe is in his future. I think he actually really loves playing for NYCFC, which is fine. And if he continues to perform well in the U.S. shirt like he did in this tournament, because I completely agree, that's a stock up guy for me, then I think that he can continue to be a real factor within the U.S. national team system.
Yeah, I think Sands is a really good one. There was a big time, even when he was at Rangers, that I thought he should have been backing up Tyler Adams just in terms of current talent. I think during the World Cup, I wanted him to be there at the World Cup, which I don't believe he was. But yeah, James Sands is a guy that I've been up on for a long time. But just to get into the next one, I'm not sure if it's really a stock down or stock up. Or stock down for Slonina or stock up for Turner. But Turner basically being able to just go into the camp. I know I would have liked to see Slonina. This is definitely a tournament more fit for him. Even Sean Johnson got to play in one game. But by Turner basically coming and saying, hey, coach, I want to play in this, he was able to obviously prevent Slonina from getting game time, which maybe from a fan's perspective isn't great, but for Turner, if he can delay Slonina from being able to show off what he can do, that'll obviously keep him as the number one guy for longer, and will help keep his stock up for 2026. If he's not letting Slonina get on the field, they can't get looks at him, so he'll be able to kind of keep that number one goalkeeper role. So that's definitely a good thing for Matt Turner.
Yeah, I kind of had some things to talk about this, and the Slonina one, I just have giant L written next to it. I would have much rather seen him against Trinidad and Tobago instead of Matt Turner.
Right.
Because at this point, Matt Turner had already played the game against Jamaica. Sean Johnson played against St. Kitts and Nevis. Give Slonina his first cap. Technically, he has a cap for the U.S., but he's not cap tied to the U.S. Mm-hmm. This would have been an official competition, which would have, in return, officially cap tied him to the U.S., which bothers me really bad, because he can still technically be poached by Poland. His one cap was in a friendly against Serbia in the Cupcake Camp back in January. We're talking a kid who has potential to become a top 5 goalkeeper in the world. Not even being biased. He is so highly thought of at Chelsea. And the fact that we didn't even play him in one game is ridiculous. Like, if you go look at Jamaica, they had, I forget his name. He plays for Reading. I think his name's Royce Beatty Clark. They gave him 10 minutes. He is now cap tied to Jamaica. Like, you're talking a kid who's 20, plays for Reading's U23s, has just got cap tied. But you're talking a guy who played for Chelsea's second team, regularly trains with the first team. You have to cap tie him, which is, I think that's just a giant L on the Federation, because I still think Greg Berhalter is behind some of these roster moves during the tournament. So, but that's a can of worms I do not want to get into, but I'm done.
Yeah, the big thing for me is, like, I just couldn't believe it when I saw Sean Johnson in the starting 11 graphic and not Slonina. Like, what good does it do for anybody? Like, Sean Johnson's never going to be your first goalkeeper, ever. Like, he's never in his life. What'd you say?
34 years old.
He's 34 years old. And then you have Slonina, who's, like you're saying, not cap tied yet, just sitting and watching him play.
And not only,
I mean,
is like Sean John, like, you're giving him the start. I don't even know if this is really arguable, but I mean, Slonina probably has current ability. Like, his current ability is probably better than Sean Johnson. You know, like, when he was in the MLS, I mean, he was going off for Chicago Fire. And if you're not going to play him, let him, you know, do the preseason with Chelsea and maybe earn that backup role, especially with Mendy leaving. Like, let him stay in that preseason for Chelsea and fight for a spot, you know, either with the A team or just be able to, you know, just practice with Chelsea to, you know, maybe get him loaned out or something like that. But bringing him just to say, hey, man, like, warm up the bench is just, that makes no sense to me. I mean, he's still a teenager. Like, either let him play or let him play with Chelsea kind of thing. So,
yeah. That's just a decision I couldn't wrap my head around. I mean, you brought him through that whole tournament just to be a spectator. Mm-hmm. I mean, like you're saying, like I was saying earlier, if you want to see guys develop and you don't plan on playing them at all, like, just like you're saying, just let him be in Chelsea's camp. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's where he's going to get more quality reps. I mean, he's going to be in practice saving shots against guys much better than Jesus Ferreira. You know, I mean, like it's just, it just, again, it's a tough decision for me to understand thoroughly.
Just real quick before we move on, I am looking up Gabriel Slonina at the U20 World Cup, because I was looking through his profile earlier, and I was looking. Like, his match ratings in the U20 World Cup were 7.6, 7.8, 7.4, 7 flat. Like, you're talking 4 extremely good performances, and you're telling me he didn't deserve one game with the U.S. team? Like, that's just absurd.
Against St. Kitts and Nevis. Like, you can't put him on the field against St. Kitts and Nevis?
Put him on as a center forward or something.
Do you need veteran experience to beat St. Kitts and Nevis? I mean, what? Like, who are you fooling with that? Like, I mean, that is absurd. Like, yeah, we need a 34-year-old in goal so we can beat St. Kitts and Nevis at the Gold Cup. Like, it's insane.
It doesn't make sense, and I mean, it never will make sense, because we're not ever going to be able to know what's inside the USSF mind, because but yeah, I thought that was a very interesting thing, and I knew that would get us started. But
yeah, I'm gonna go to a stock down, and that's gonna be rolled on, like Brett's mentioned kind of before, and I want to get into. I mean, you're taking a guy who's, you know, a pretty key player for Seattle, you know, so let him kind of play with Seattle, and then you have Obed Vargas there, who is less important for Seattle, but can be exponentially more important for the USMNT. So, I mean, he's obviously already played in the U20 World Cup. He's done, you know, well there. He's still a teenager. He's a guy who can, you know, be that backup 6 to Tyler Adams. Maybe not by a 2026 World Cup, but I mean, he has superstar potential. So, Bring Obed Vargas, who, like I said, can be much more valuable for the USA in the future, might actually play with the A team compared to Christian Roldan, who has never looked, you know, great in a USMNT jersey, and then obviously missed the penalty that got us knocked out of the tournament as well.
Okay, that's enough.
I think I was gonna talk on Roldan, but I just. However I wrote it down, however I was going to say it, it was going to look like I was bashing the guy. I don't want to bash the guy. Like, yeah, he missed the penalty against Panama, but he also had, like, he played, like, 2 minutes a game before that. Like, you're talking a guy coming on in the 110th minute, asking him to take a pen in the semifinal of a cup, and you literally want him to be completely mentally fit. Like, no, it's just not going to do it. So my stock down is Alejandro Zendejas, who was absolutely god-awful the whole tournament. He looked out of sync, out of place, and it genuinely hurt his chances to ever be called up in the future camps with the first-team squad, because there was times I didn't even know he was on the field, and a lot of people agree with me at this point. Like, he had times where, like, when lineups would come out, if they saw Zendejas in the starting 11, they'd be like, you got to be kidding me. Like, start Cade Cowell, start Jordan Morris, like anything. Start Brandon Vasquez for all I care. Like, Zendejas was not good. He looked really out of sync and out of place in this team. And unfortunately, like, I think the tenacity he brings is really good, but he did not bring anything else. Like, bro completely left his bag in Mexico.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean,
Zendejas, he played 4 games. I believe he averaged 70 minutes each game, but he lost possession 12 times per game. Not 12 times across all 4 games. He lost possession 11.8 times a game. That is just absurd. I mean, he had 1 assist versus St. Kitts and Nevis, but I mean, besides that, he did nothing the whole tournament besides help out the other teams. Really, I mean, losing possession 12 times across 4 games is but I mean, 12 times a game is insane. So yeah, he's definitely a guy who is getting a stock down. He's still young and can maybe bounce back in the future, but I think we definitely need to hold up before calling him in again.
Yeah, I mean, I just, you talked about Roldan. I mean, I have to say, like, as someone who watches him regularly for his club, I mean, you're right, he's so critical to Sounders, but, I do think that he's kind of benefited a little bit from a national team sense of a lack of depth from at the positions that he plays. And so, but again, I think from a talent perspective, I just don't think that this is a guy. I think him and Morris, right, are both guys that do they really have any shot of contributing at the 2026 World Cup? I mean, the answer is flat out no. I mean, there's no shot. They barely had a shot to contribute, a year ago in Qatar. And so, again, the whole young movement, my whole point about moving younger, these are the first 2 guys that I think personally have got to be out the door first. I mean, them 2 and Aaron Long, I mean, hey, thanks for your time. Go take care of MLS. I don't know, and it's just it pains me to say it because, I watched an interview with Christian Roldan when he got called up for the Gold Cup, and he said, "Look, I want to play for Sounders. I love it, but you can't turn down an opportunity to play for your country." I totally get it. Like, when he's on the field, I'm going to root for him because he's he's representing our country, So I can't hate on a guy for getting called up, but I also understand moving forward, it's beneficial to him as a player, to the U.S. Soccer Federation, that they just decide this isn't in the blueprint anymore. All right, so last but not least, we've got the first ever All-American Soccer Show trivia game where it's MLS, USMNT, current and past. I'm your host for this, and we're going to go head-to-head, Carson and Brian. It's going to be multiple choice, 7 questions, 1 point for each answer predicted correctly. We're going to keep it simple, odd number of questions. The person with the most points wins. All right, are you guys ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, here we go. First question is in the MLS category. Which of these clubs is currently top of the table in the Western Conference on away matches? A, LAFC.
Is crazy.
A, LAFC. B, St. Louis City. C, Real Salt Lake. Or D, Minnesota United.
No, away matches is crazy. No way you just put out on away matches. I was like, this question's
That's the first question.
I was like, this question's going to be way too easy. Who's top of the table? I mean, obviously, St. Louis is number 1. LAFC is number 2. I don't know if they play that great on the road, and they still might be a few games back, which makes me think that they could be short. I almost feel like I'm working with Brian right now. I'm not supposed to be doing that. I'm like thinking my thoughts out loud.
Honestly.
But what were all 4 options?
So LAFC, St. Louis City.
Brian, close that tab. I know what you're doing.
Hands were right.
Hands up.
It's my fault.
Whoa.
Hands up, bro. Hands
All right,
up.
so LAFC, St. Louis City, Real Salt Lake, Minnesota United.
Now you see, if this was an hour ago, I would have had this.
I'm gonna make Brian answer first because I already kind of did my thoughts out loud. So
Okay, we'll have Brian answer this one first. The next question we'll have Carson answer first, and we'll switch.
Real Salt Lake.
fuck, that's who I wanted.
Say it. You know you want to.
I'm gonna have to do Real Salt Lake too.
All right, you're both correct. Congratulations with 21 points. Real Salt Lake is 6-3-3 on the road this season. They've rocketed up the table lately.
If they wouldn't have came back and drawn Sporting on the road the other day, I probably would have actually picked like St. Louis or something.
All right, so second question, we're moving over to the national team. So Kobe Jones is the all-time record holder for caps in USMNT history. Who is second on this list with 156 caps? Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey, Michael Bradley, or Tim Howard? We'll start with you, Carson.
Yeah, I believe it's Clint Dempsey. I know him and Donovan both have they're tied for the most goals in USMNT history, but I want to say Dempsey has more. I want to say he has more caps, especially with Donovan getting snubbed out of one of the World Cups. I think it's Dempsey.
Okay, because I'm stuck between Dempsey and Michael Bradley, actually. Because Michael Bradley was a stalwart in our midfield for a long time. But I also know his national team career ended a lot quicker than Dempsey's did because we had McKennie and all them come in. I don't want to pick the same one. I don't want to be boring. Screw it. I'll go Michael Bradley. Just screw it. If I lose, I lose, honestly. I'm just having a good time.
You are both incorrect. The answer is
Donovan.
A. Landon Donovan.
I knew it was
with
either Donovan or
157
Dempsey.
caps.
Because I knew they were both tied on goals, but I couldn't remember which one had the
Can I
more
see how many
caps.
caps Michael Bradley has?
No, get off that computer, man.
Yeah, hey, save it for after the show, pal.
Hey,
This is cheating.
I'm marking on his wiki page. He's got 151. I wasn't far off.
All right, so third question. We'll go back to Brian answering first on this one. Back to MLS. So this is a historical MLS question. This club is 0-5 in MLS Cup finals and has been referred to by some as the Tottenham of MLS. A. Chicago Fire, B. FC Dallas, C. Vancouver Whitecaps, or D. New England Revolution.
Well, for sure it ain't Sporting Kansas City because we got stars, baby. We got a wall. I'm stuck between. I want to say Dallas won it in the early 2000s. So they are kind of on my wavelength of not being there. Who were the A and C? I'm sorry.
Chicago Fire was A. Vancouver Whitecaps was C.
I'm going to go ahead and say Whitecaps just because it feels right. I feel like I can remember Chicago winning it when Jesse Marsh was actually playing for them. So I don't know why I'm helping Carson out here. So I'm going to shut up now.
I'm sorry, this is U.S. Open Cup?
This is MLS Cup.
MLS Cup. Okay, because I was like, does Vancouver, are they allowed to compete in the U.S. Open Cup? I don't think Chicago Fire, I can't see them being to five cups. Dallas as well. It was between the last two for me, Vancouver or New England Revolution. So I'm gonna split the vote and go with New England Revolution.
Carson wins the point here. It is New England Revolution. Has been the 5 MLS Cup finals and has never won it. Brian, to your point, FC Dallas has never won the MLS Cup. So that is 2 for Carson, 1 for Brian. As we head to the fourth question, this is back to USMNT. So this is a historical question for USMNT. When the United States last hosted the World Cup in 1994, the USMNT advanced to the knockout rounds and fell to which country in the round of 16 by a 1-0 scoreline? A. Sweden, B. Germany, C. Brazil, D. Italy.
That's crazy because before you said that, I actually thought it was a different team than any of those 4. This was back in 1994.
Yes.
There's no way Sweden. There's no way Sweden was balling out in 1994. I I don't know if Zlatan was, doing his thing yet back in 1994. It's got to be. I'm gonna say Brazil. I'm gonna go with Brazil.
I'm just gonna hammer Germany.
Carson takes a 3-1 lead. It is Brazil.
I don't want to say the same answers too.
I had to get a USMNT answer right. If I got only MLS answers right and then no USMNT answers right, that would make me feel like the fakest fan.
That's baloney.
All right, we're back to current MLS for the 5th question. Which club is currently atop the form table over their last 4 matches? A, St. Louis City, B, Chicago Fire, C, Columbus Crew, or D, Austin FC?
I don't think it's Austin FC. We're hot, but we just lost our last game. Chicago Fire they just did really good. I know Shaqiri just popped off. Columbus Crew, I feel like this is a trap vote because I'm always like Columbus Crew is doing so well. I know they just dropped points earlier this week. Who was the other team?
St. Louis City.
It's definitely not them. It's not St. Louis Out. That's why I wasn't even thinking them. I already threw them on my mind. So if it is them, this is going to be a horrible clip. But actually, Brian has to answer this one first since I went last time. So I'm gonna let him answer first before I give too much away.
Screw y'all. I never said you're not allowed to pick the same answer, but I know y'all both are like don't want to just do that.
If I want to win, I gotta pick something.
Right.
Chicago. Screw it.
Yeah, they're hot. It's not Austin.
They're hot.
I know for a fact there's no way it's St. Louis City. She says Chicago Fire. I'm going to have to take Columbus then. But
Brian gets back on the board as Chicago Fire.
Fair enough.
Let's go.
All right.
Big one.
So it's close. It's 3-2 right now. Carson leads as we head to the 6th question. Only 2 questions left. This is back to the U.S. national team. At the 2002 World Cup, the U.S. men's national team advanced the furthest they ever have, falling 1-0 to Germany in the quarterfinals. Which country did they defeat in the first group stage match that would eventually send them to the knockout rounds and finish second in the group? A, Portugal, B, Japan, C, Poland, D, South Korea.
Yeah, I think it's Portugal. So I'm gonna just lock in Portugal early.
I'm a YOLO at South Korea.
Carson again.
No,
USMNT knowledge,
Portugal.
baby. That's me. I think that confirms it. I'm him. I think I won, but we can.
So with 4 wins now, that clinches the first ever trivia game for Carson. Do you want to do the 7th question? We can do this last
finish.
Yeah,
one.
we got to go for 5 points. We got to go for 5.
The final question. It's MLS. For 7 straight seasons, y'all are going to like that I included this one. From 2015 to 2021, just 2 clubs represented the Western Conference in the MLS Cup final, Seattle Sounders and Portland Timbers. Of those 7 combined appearances, how many total wins in the final did they have? A, 2, B, 4, C, 5, D, 3.
How many did Seattle go to? Because I just want to assume they lost all of them. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. I know you're a Seattle fan. It's just jokes.
I can tell you they won at least one because Stefan Fry went crazy.
Yeah, if they got 0 for 7, that'd be pretty poor. Let's go for. I don't think it's going to be a middle number like 3 or 4, just because I feel like that would make the question a little too easy, and I feel like Brett wants to hype up that Seattle was having a successful tenure, but 6 and 7 just seems like a lot. So I'm gonna say they won 5 out of the 7.
I'm gonna go on the other hand and say 3. I wanted to say 2 because that's what felt right in the beginning, but I'll say 3. I'll kind of play with the middle mind game here.
It is 3. Brian gets the final question correct. Sounders won 2. The Timbers won 1. So that is it for the first ever edition of the All-American Soccer Show trivia game. Carson, congratulations. You are 1-0. You are the all-knowing ball knower of All-American Soccer Show.
Yes,
Brian doesn't really appreciate that I'm saying that right now at all. I'm sure we're going to hear that in the group chat later. But I believe that is it for the first edition edition of All American Soccer Show via YouTube,
Yes,
and the
sir.
5th episode total. So you can hear us on podcast. That's on Apple Podcasts or on our Substack page. You can find us on YouTube through Sauce Covers USA. And so that is it for episode 5 of the All American Soccer Show. I'm one of your hosts, Brett Esch, with Brian Fireball, Carson Sauce Saden, and we will see you back here next time.
Sir.